participating in this interview and giving me some of your Sunday. I appreciate
it. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So let me just start by gushing because I found out about Two Moons last year. I think, I don't even remember where, frankly. I think that I read about it on somebody's blog, and I thought, okay, Black, lesbian, Afrofuturism, speculative fiction, oh my God. And so I got it and I read it. It was one of the first books that I read in 2019. And this is my copy of it. Like, I tabbed it.
I love that. Yes.
I just loved Two Moons. Like, I literally loved it. I think I probably like closed it and just went like when I was reading it, because it's, I guess like the first thing is that I feel as though, I mean, I've read a lot of Afrofuturism books and stories and science fiction and speculative fiction stories that involve queer characters, but there was something so decidedly Black, so decidedly lesbian about this that it just really warmed my heart. Like, and there was a lot of romance and stuff. So it wasn't just Black lesbian characters, but also Black lesbian characters in love, in relationships, supporting each other, looking for each other, like, and engaging with nature and all of that. So I want to thank you for writing this. And
thank you for reading it. Oh my gosh, yes.
I really loved it. So tell me a little bit about you and who you are as a writer. So when did you start writing?
I think it would have to be 11th grade English, like when I really, started taking it seriously, writing poems and just like really getting into the things that we were reading in class and, like having a different perspective when we discussed it. And I will never ever forget my English teacher, Miss Ramey. She started this writing club for us, and she would take us different places. I remember going to a bed and breakfast, and we like had tea, and we were being fancy, and then we got to sit down and write, and like choose the room that we were going to write in, and just like experience atmosphere, and just writing down the things that we thought, and it was always valid. And so that was the moment, probably. Just 11th grade English, being told, hey, you can write stuff like this or whatever you want. So that was absolutely the moment when I was like, all right, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, it's so powerful to have an educator validate what you're creating.
Yes.
I remember when I was I wrote something in elementary school, and I started off the piece by saying it was a dark and stormy night, but I was still practicing different ways to write.
Yeah.
So my R looked like an N, and it came across, it was a dank and stormy night. And my teacher was like, did you mean to write dank? And I said, no, I'm so sorry. It's supposed to say dark. And she said, it might have been dank.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And so I was like, I've learned dank. And I many, many decades later, I remember that moment because I was not told like this is wrong. It was more like, why don't you explore this? This could actually be what you're trying to convey. So yeah. So now so you're not in grade school anymore. You're grown.
Yes.
So at this point, what kind of a genre of literature do you like to write and want to write more of, and why?
I love a speculative fiction. You can just get lost in the details and the, hey, what if this happens? Or, ooh, wouldn't that be a surprise? Just making things come to life, making people not necessarily be people. Like, I love that. Like, oh, you thought that was a human? Nope. There's like a mixture of genetic whatever going on. So I love speculative fiction. I like to be surprised. And so, if I can surprise myself, then I feel like I can surprise, readers. So I like to, mix it up and play with different things. I'm really into nature and how nature has a life of its own, you know? And so if some flowers can turn into, you know, something else or take on the characteristics of something else, I'm so into that. Like the moon, yeah, we're gonna talk about that.
We're gonna talk about the moon.
We'll talk about that. But yeah, I love speculative fiction. And I feel like speculative it can reach out and take many genres. You know, there's, you know, horror, hard science, it can be speculative romance. Like there's nothing that speculative fiction can't do. And I love that, you know, like it's all about that what if question. What if this happens? Let's see how it goes. I love it.
And I really felt that when I was reading the short stories. I remember moments just being like, wait, what? what just, I thought, what? Oh, wow. Like, and then I just found myself being like, this is a thing. And I'm trying to be good about spoilers this year. So, but I also kind of don't care. So, you know, tensions. But I just found myself feeling like I was in a more recognizable story for a couple of pages, and then automatically just feeling like we've just dived off like a major cliff. I have no idea where this is going to end. I'm so happy that I don't. And I just feel bigger after having read this. Like I felt like these stories pushed my imagination and really, and in some ways challenged me, especially around the relationship between us and nature, us and the cosmos, where it just went beyond metaphor for me. It became so literal. And I was like, I didn't even know that you could do that. And it inspired me as well. So in terms of inspiration, I mean, your collection of short stories is obviously called Two Moons. What is it with you and the moon?
Oh gosh, it's so hard to describe. The moon is beautiful. The moon has like this pull on us. We like can look up at it in any of its phases and discover something, right? And you know, we sent people to the moon and and they, you know, came back with all this information, and yet it's still so undiscovered. Like how even is that possible? Like there's just something indescribable about the moon, and I'm gonna keep trying to figure out what that is for as long as people will like listen and read, because it's just like every day it's something different with the moon and the stars. I don't know how to describe it. It's just something so mystical and something so magical, right? I love it.
Yeah, for me, like when I started to shift from Catholicism and Judeo-Christianity to other types of indigenous religious cosmologies and practices, I started to learn more about the phases of the moon, the relationship between the moon and certain bodies, certain bodies, and those who bleed, like the relationship between the moon and menstruation and stuff like that. So it was really cool to read that. And also, this is sort of a little bit of a spoiler, but not only to read about our relationship as humanoids with the moon, but the moon's relationship with us, and what happens when you explore that perspective. And I have to say, out of all of the stories in Two Moons, the stories in which that other perspective was available to us, were the most pleasurable for me. And the most mind-blowing for me. So I was introduced to this text as a Black lesbian speculative fiction text. So for you, you've talked a little bit about why speculative fiction is so important as a genre for you, and like it opens sort of doors to other kinds. It could be anything, you said. Why is the Black lesbian voice important in speculative fiction, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's important in like every aspect of life. And we haven't heard enough.
Also that.
right? We haven't heard enough of it, you know? Like people in 2019 are acting like oh my gosh, there are Black lesbians who do X and do Y. And I'm just like, we've been here. Okay. Like people do not listen. People don't want to listen until it has something to do with them. Well, it's my job to just shout it and keep shouting and to just like embrace that, because you're not going to erase me. I won't allow it, And so it's so important that we have those voices in, literature and in music and in art and all those things, because people will try to ignore you. People will try to erase you, and then they will steal your work. they will say, oh yeah, I created that. And like, no, sorry. We have been here. We have been doing this. And if you don't want to listen, that's on you, because you're going to miss out, because we are cultivating the life that we want to live. So, oh gosh, just not even just in literature, but the Black lesbian voice is so important in every aspect of every life. and yeah, that's just how I see it. Like you cannot erase us and then, say, oh, hey, look, all of a sudden, no, we have been here. We have been fighting. We have been speaking and just giving you full life, and if people want to miss out on that, that's on them. But we have to keep, living for ourselves and showing, those who come after us, hey, there is a place for you. There's always been a place for you. And just keep going.
Yeah, I loved, there's one story in the collection that gets us to think a little bit about a parent's relationship with their child, and their child having a sexuality that's different from the parents, and also just different from many ways that we experience sexuality or romance or desire. And that whole idea that there's a place for you, really featured prominently in a couple of the stories. And not only that there's a place for you, but even if there's not a place for you now, or even though we might not have envisioned a place for you, we can create a place for you against the odds.
Make it. Yeah,
we can make it, and it's okay. It'll end well.
Yes.
And a number of your stories ended well, and I found myself worried that they might not, and needing them to end well. So yeah. In terms of the stories, I'm really curious about how you ordered them, and I didn't ask you that in advance, but I'm curious about how you ordered them, and I'm also curious about which of your stories were the most fulfilling for you to write, and assuming that all of them were fulfilling, because I can't see why not fulfilling, but was there one in particular that maybe you struggled with, or took a little bit longer, or was unique in the process as compared to the others?
Oh gosh, yeah. So the order of the stories, I really had help with that. My publisher, Stephanie at BLF Press, she is really fantastic at knowing, like how things should be paced and how things flow into each other. So I'm really just going to give her all the credit for that.
Credit where credit's due.
Yes.
We don't do that enough.
Phenomenal. Yes, she knows what she's doing. But I think one of the stories that was the most important and kind of gave me some this has to be in the book is the first story, Search. It's kind of like a prayer. It's kind of like a introduction. It's kind of like, this is the journey that you're going on, get ready. And I was so afraid that was going to get cut. I turned it in and I was just like, oh my God, she's going to think I'm nuts. This isn't going to fit, anywhere. But I was willing to fight for it, but I didn't have to, because, Stephanie, she understood what I was trying to do, and she got it. She was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we need to get this thing started. So that Search was, I feel like I wrote it in a fever dream, oh my gosh, I'm typing. And then all of a sudden it's done. And I'm like, oh gosh, what happened here? I don't remember any of these things, but it was so, I don't know, I guess visceral, it just came pouring out, and it felt so good, and it felt so finished, and it felt so complete. And so I was willing to fight for that story. So that one was really important. And then one that was really hard for me to write, oh gosh, the story about the roses.
Yeah.
I wrote several drafts of that, and none of them like felt good. And none of them felt complete. And so many things changed from draft to draft, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? Like, I've already said the story is gonna, you know, be in here, and now I kind of want to just cut it all together. But it, you know, over time, I just kept, you know, working at it, and then something finally kind of clicked, and I was like, oh well, I kind of like that. Okay, let's keep going. People sometimes people don't understand, like, it's more than just one draft, it's more than just two drafts. And it gave me some palpitations. I'm like, oh my God, who even is this? You know, when I was writing it. But with some, again, Stephanie, my publisher at BLF Press, she was like, okay, just take some time and just kind of, you know, like, work through whatever it is that these characters are going through, whatever you're going through, and just kind of see what things fall into place. And that absolutely helps. And she was also very instrumental about saying, hey, pick up this book and read this. So there were always recommendations of, hey, read this and see how you feel about it, and, you know, like, work through, you know, whatever it is, see what other people are doing, and figure out how you can put your inspiration and your energy into a story that could fit into the same book as one of these stories. And that was so helpful. People say all the time, oh, I don't want to read too many of these stories, I don't want to copy. That's not going to happen. Not going to happen, you know. But that inspiration and, like, seeing how other people, like, oh damn, that was so weird. Okay. I can relax a little bit. What I was writing wasn't so weird after all, you know, like, yeah, we all have different takes on things. And so that's very helpful. So I think those two, Search and A Rose for Brescia, those two were my best effort, and then my I don't know what I'm doing stories.
I liked The Rose for Brescia, and there's a twist right at the end that I was like, oh
yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh my God. And then there was a part of me that was just like, well, what's going to happen now?
Right. Yeah.
And then I had all these questions, like, how much was known about this turn of events, and, like, what does it mean? And so
like, do like, if you know X, are you really going to fight for this, or what, you know? All those different things. After it was done, I love that story.
It's a great story.
Thank you.
It's a great story. It left an imprint.
Good. Yes.
So, and I think the question that I have now is about that moment when you switch from the world we know, the literal world, to, like, some magical world. And as I mentioned earlier, the reading experience that I had was a really emotional one. I felt like after the second story, I was like, okay, at some point, Krystal is going to just push my head underwater and be like, you've got gills, deal with it. Right?
Get it. Yes.
Right. And I'm like, so I was just waiting for the drop, right? Like in dubstep music, you're just waiting for the drop. Okay, here it's, oh, whoa, wow. So how did you know? How did you figure out the rhythm of when you would, like, drop the reader into this magical space when up to that point everything was recognizable and quote unquote normal? How do you know when to do it?
Sometimes it just kind of, like, comes, you're like, oh yeah, you do have gills, yes ma'am, like, you know, and you just kind of, like, go for it. Sometimes it takes a little bit more finesse, like, you know, I find myself asking, like, could this happen? Like even in this world, is somebody gonna believe that, you know, this is what happened next? You know, sometimes you just gotta take off the, life jacket and say, okay, I'm going for it. We'll flesh it out. We'll get to the end. Let me just get to the end of this draft and see how I feel about it. Let's see what happens. And then a lot of workshopping too. So you have readers, and you have people that give you feedback, and sometimes it's like, girl, that's not believable. Take it out. Stop. Like, and you're just like, wow, that was, that's their visceral reaction. So, okay, let me revamp this. Sometimes it's like you were saying, like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm ready to go in this with you. I don't even care what happens. Like, just take me on this trip, and so it just takes a lot of different maneuvering, I guess. Sometimes it just comes, and sometimes you just gotta, work at it and play with it and figure out, like, okay, I can trickle some of these elements to you, right away, so that you're in this world with me.
You just cut out for a second. So you said, I can trickle some of these elements.
Yes, I can trickle some of these elements into the story, to keep the reader going, or sometimes just give it all to them at once so that they're overwhelmed.
Yeah, there was that too.
Yes.
That as well.
It's nice to be overwhelmed, right? And your brain is working, and you're like, okay, I want to figure this out, but you're like, okay, I got to get to the end. What is happening?
Yeah. And I felt, for me, by the time I got to the stories that felt overwhelming, and there weren't like a lot of them that felt like, oh my gosh, I don't know, I need a break, I need a drink. Like, there weren't there were a few like that. But I kind of felt like I trusted you at that point. I got to know that you're not going to take me to a traumatic place.
Right.
I'll be able to manage what you bring. And not only that, but there's a reason that I'm being taken to this particular way of doing things.
Yeah.
So in terms of like your own writing experience, what would you say was the most pleasurable part of the writing experience? And also, how long did it take you to complete this project?
Oh my goodness. Let's see. I think it took, maybe it was 2 years. 2.5 years. Some of the stories were partially written, and just need to be fleshed out. Some of them were in workshop. So it took a good amount of time to actually write the stories. The fun part, the pleasurable part, is when you're done with the draft enough that you can start editing it, and get the feedback. One of my editors, like, she's so great at detail, and she was like, but they were just in the car 10 minutes ago, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, that's right, they're not there yet, I've like skipped a scene. Or calling me out like, girl, you use the word suddenly so many times, can we I'm like, yes, thank you, yes, you're right. And so that part is kind of where you get to not necessarily like full on relax, but the story is written, and you're just kind of like tightening up the details, making sure things are logical and make sense, and making sure that it's smooth, that that things transition the way that they should, and not the way that I kind of wanted them to in my mind. So it's the editing is hard, but it's a little bit more relaxed. Because you've already got the story, and you're just you're cleaning it up, you're making it look extra polished and nice, and so that's a great feeling when the story is done.
Yeah, I write not creative stuff right now, but like I write a lot, and when you have a draft, it's kind of like, okay, this is manageable.
Yeah,
right?
it's possible. Yes, this is manageable. I know what I need to do next. Yeah.
Are you ready for the rapid fire round?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Okay, so the instructions are, just answer the question, don't think about it too much, and have fun. Okay, ready?
Okay.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Trek.
DC or Marvel?
Marvel.
Favorite writer?
Oh, that's not fair.
I know.
Come back to it.
Do you watch booktube?
No, I do not.
And why not?
Because I don't know what that is.
Will you now watch booktube?
Yes, I will.
Excellent. Okay, lake, river, waterfall, or ocean?
Waterfall.
Why?
It's beautiful. You can look up at it and it makes that like oceany sound.
Storm or Nubia?
Storm.
Famous person that you'd want to play a board game with?
Ooh. Harry Carey.
And who would win?
Me.
Which board game would it be?
Monopoly.
And I have a Black Panther story question because obviously,
Yes.
M'Baku, Killmonger, or T'Challa?
M'Baku.
And I was asking about their political views. I feel like there might have been another direction you were trying to head.
Kick ass, save lives. I'm just.
So since you probably don't have one favorite author, maybe a few of your favorites.
Let's see. Zora Neale Hurston, Alice Walker. Nawal El Sadawi. I think she is an Islamic writer, and she writes kind of political, feminist, like crossover fiction and political essays. She's really powerful.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we're done the lightning round.
Yay!
I hope you enjoyed it. And do you like readers to engage with you personally? And I say this because there might be people who are currently writing things right now, or people who are reading things or reading your books who might want to reach out or connect or ask questions or whatnot. What are your thoughts about that? Or do you
absolutely
give birth and you're like out in the world?
Like I love, having a good conversation about, anything that, I've read and someone else has read, and, we come together and talk about it. I definitely like talking about what I've written and, that's out there in the world. It's nice to get what other people interpret, from your work.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to kind of like, I haven't thought about that. That was a really, you're bringing something brand new to the table, even though I've written this thing. So I definitely like that. There are some times when people who have read like one person of color author and they think like, oh, well, your story wasn't like that. And I'm just like, slow your roll. We exist in multitudes. Every story is not going to be a slave narrative. Okay. And everything is not going to be the way you expect it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Cool. Don't come at me. But overall, I absolutely love discourse and talking to people and, getting their take on things, and just kind of like experiencing like what it is they bring to a story or an essay or whatever it is. So absolutely. Yeah.
So what's next for you?
I am working on some short stories right now. I would love to do another collection. I'm also submitting some work to a few magazines this year. I just want to like produce more, and just like hone in on this speculative fiction thing. I want to keep writing and just like enjoy like the whole process of writing, because it feels so good when you're done. So yeah, you're right. So yeah, I'm just like working on stories, writing, and just kind of trying to keep things flowing.
And if we want to find out more of your work, find more of your work, stuff that you've written before 2 Moons, because I think this is your first book.
First full collection, yeah.
Where else could we go?
Let's see. BLF Press has a few stories, and you can also check out my website, KrystalAsmith.com. I've got some things up there, and hit me up on social media. I love to chit chat and cut up and be silly. I'm on Twitter as author KA Smith, and I am on Instagram as KA Writes.
Cool. So I will put all of the links to your social media places in the description area, and also a link to your website and the press too.
Excellent.
So we are done.
Yay! That was so fun.
Thank you for joining me and talking to me on this Sunday.
Yes, thank you.
And yeah, and as I said earlier, I really appreciate the work that you've done in Two Moons. It spoke to me very personally, and I I felt like my imagination was validated, my experience was validated, and also in ways that I didn't realize it hadn't yet been validated.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
from a reader to a writer, I really appreciate it. And thank you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. That means everything. Thank you.